I ain't the kind to wear a tie. Button up from 9 to 5. I tried that life but said goodbye. I'm not always polite, but I get the job done. Who says the world can never be fun? I'm simply unprofessional. Simply unprofessional.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Simply Unprofessional. I'm your host, Webby. Joining me tonight, we got Devin.
Hey, everybody, what's up?
And we got Mr. Edquist.
Hey, guys, how's it going?
Alright, so tonight, I'm not going to lie, I was crunched for a topic. So we're going to do the 10 most common mistakes DMs and players make in D&D. 5e, specifically. Also, there is some rule-esque type questions, which I guess I'll start with, because this spurred from a conversation that me and Austin had. Regarding reactions, his question was, if you take a reaction, when do you get it back? And like Devin answered before we started recording, it is at the beginning of your turn. Now, Devin, scenario.
Mm-hmm.
If me, you, and Rob all roll for combat, okay, and I roll second, right? And you're first, and Rob's third. And you go to do an action, and I use my reaction. Then at the end of your turn, it is now my turn. By rules as written, I would get my reaction back. And then if Rob did something, I could also use a reaction as well. So essentially, the first round of initiative, as long as you fall on it a certain way, is the only round where you can legitimately use two reactions in the same round, correct?
Rules written.
Okay. Now, do you have a problem with that? Because I know Austin said that he something about that seemed very off, and I was like, well, I mean, it makes sense. If you get it back at the start of your turn.
I'll say this. I think it's rules as written. I don't think it's rules as intended.
Okay.
I don't think when they sat down and wrote that up, they thought that particular scenario through.
Right.
Just because it's out of place for that to only occur on the first round of combat. It seems relatively out of place.
Right.
So if I had to say anything, probably if there was like an errata or something floating around, it probably would be to the effect of, you only can use your reaction once per
round.
Once per turn, once per round of combat. So even you may recover it on your turn, but you only can use the reaction once per round in combat.
Okay, because I looked through the PHB, and under the reactions section, there's nothing that states that you can't.
Yeah. I know. I understand completely. If you're playing rules as written, I would say that.
Now, which would be your preferred way of playing it? I mean, granted, the scenario doesn't come up very often for it to really matter.
Honestly, in that situation, I would play rules as written, only because there are some interesting builds that mess with reactions, and if you add that other line there without going into further specification on other things, it could create more issues.
Okay. So you would just keep it at rules as written?
Yeah, I would just keep it rules as written.
Okay. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, technically it's correct. Right. Even if it seems a little bit OP.
And it's legitimately just the first round of combat that it would even happen on?
And it's the first round of combat.
And you'd have to be in a certain order for it to work.
Right.
Well, you would, to a degree, yeah. I mean, you would have to be in the first round of combat. You cannot be first.
Right.
And on top of that, they would have to do something that would provoke a reaction out of you either way.
Right.
Well, no. See, because even if you're last, there are some things that let you. There's some shit that lets you, even if you as a character can just spend your reaction for an opportunity attack, as long as they're threatening a square. So even with bills like that, you can actually pop it off twice in the last round of combat, especially if you threaten range squares. It can get a little crazy. You could,
Right.
but I mean, it's not going to break the. I don't think it's going to break anything.
Right.
And I think you're going to wind up breaking and effectively the low. If you change it, the longer the game goes on. Like if you change it for a session or something, that's not a big deal. Like a one shot, that's fine. But I think if the longer you change it, you're going to run into more problems that you're going to be fixing.
Right. And see, the conversation that this stemmed from essentially was I started looking into because me and Donnie were going to get into a spell war in Austin's home game. He was charmed, and I was trying to cast a spell on the person who charmed him, and then he counterspelled me. So then I was going to use my reaction to counterspell his counterspell. And Austin didn't think you could, so we let it just lie as the fact that you couldn't at that point. But then I started looking into it, and you very much can. Like if the scenario happened where a mage was going to throw a fireball, mage number 2 goes to counterspell him. Mage number 1 throwing a fireball can spend his reaction to counterspell the counterspell. And then the fireball would go through. Which seems odd because you're in the middle of casting a spell and now you're going to cast a secondary spell, but it is a reaction spell. So it's still doable. So I thought that was cool. Because I mean, again, it's one of those things where it's like it never happened enough for me to really want to look up the rules for it. But now that I have, I know them.
I will say this. Even the only time I would argue and say you can't counterspell a counterspell would be, or at least I would bring it up. This is just more of a homebrew thing, but just like logic. If it's a spell that requires concentration, because how are you going to be able to concentrate on a spell? And while you're casting that spell, counter the spell yourself. I mean, by the book, it's doable. If it was, it's 100% doable. I have really nothing wrong with it to begin with. I just think that.
Well, concentration is number 6 on our list, so let's put a pin on that until we get there.
Yeah,
because I know the concentration rules. Because I have some questions about that, regardless. But
okay.
All right. So moving on to the list first. And then after the list, we'll get into see if either of you have any type of rules questions that maybe are obscure and haven't really been brought up or needed to be brought up before. But number 1 on this list is surprise. Talking about surprise rounds and so on and so forth. Now, I'm reading this off of, let's see, what is this? Dungeonsmaster.com. So, you guys can go and look this up if you want, but I am going to read this verbatim. It says, repeat after me, there is no such thing as a surprise round in 5e. Don't believe me? Look it up. The first round of combat can function differently than normal if some creatures, friendly or hostile, are surprised. This is usually based on who's hidden and who's not, but there are other factors. Don't even get me started on the ambuscade action rangers get in the Unearthed Arcana article. That'll just make your head hurt. I don't know what that is. I'm guessing there's like some action. There's some rangers that like get to do ambush stuff.
Yeah. There's. I think they read to the rangers, and one of the things they can do is they can set up ambushes and ambush stuff. It's pretty cool, but whatever.
So yeah, there's technically no such thing as a surprise round in 5e. So does that mean? Yeah. Now let me ask you this: if you're stated that you're stealthing around, right, and you're hidden, and then combat happens, you have to roll for initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Then technically, if you're hidden and your enemy does not notice you, then they would be surprised by your attack.
For that first round, yes, because if you're attacking from stealth, breaks your concealment, so yes.
Now, what about, say,
That's why you
what
can
about
build around the
rogues?
whole. Rogues can build around the whole, like, if you want to be a ranged rogue, you can shoot and then attempt to re-hide.
Well, I was going to say, well, what about rogues who can use their bonus action to, say, hide,
Yeah. Yeah,
and then
you can.
re-stealth,
Mhm.
and then do they just, as long as they're beating the perception
Well,
of
this
the
is the
enemy,
thing. You can hide, right?
right?
Which are hide and stealth two different things? That's the question.
I don't know.
If hide and stealth,
Well,
yeah,
see,
the
to
dex
me,
stealth,
if
no, no,
somebody
no,
if somebody
hide-
wanted to make a hide, like if they wanted to hide as their action or bonus action
that's
if
an
you're
action.
a rogue,
Yeah.
then I would make them make a stealth check.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. So the hide action is a stealth check for hiding, which basically just boils down to it compares against their passive wisdom. So if you beat their passive wisdom, then yes, they don't see you. Any creature that you attack a creature that use passive wisdom, you beat, they would be surprised. I will say that this argument is purely semantical. I mean, while there is no technical, yes, there's no surprise round. If your party sneaks up and you do not, and none of the enemies beat the passive, like their passive doesn't beat the party's stealth check, or for whatever reason or another, you catch them off guard. Effectively, you could just say you get a surprise round.
Right.
I mean, yeah,
that's
so,
how we've always done it.
Right. Which, I mean, it boils down to, but technically, how the rules go, it's surprise is not all or nothing. Like, a character can catch a group of people, I don't know, off guard and surprise them. You don't necessarily, like, it doesn't have to be the whole party or not the whole party. Like, you can, like, if the rogue split off from the party before combat started and hid in the bushes and hid, and then combat starts and he pops out and then, takes a couple pop shots and then, like, jukes back in the forest and hides. Technically, even though the party doesn't get a surprise attack, he would get a surprise attack because he took the effort to hide.
Now, so for like assassination rogues, because me and Austin were also talking about this the other day.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you might have been on the call because I think we were talking about my bard at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an assassination rogue, you get an automatic crit as long as your target is surprised and you hit them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a rogue and you're stealth or whatever, and you attack somebody the first round of combat, they're surprised because you're hidden as long as they don't perceive you. Yep. Now, if you use your next bonus action to hide, being a rogue, and then you move away and you re-hide, then your next attack is also a surprise attack.
Yes.
So you can just continuously keep surprised, even if the guy is aware of your presence, he just does not see you.
Well, actually,
because that was Austin's argument for it.
No, actually, no, I can't. I'm gonna tell you why. I can't. I'm reading the surprise rules right now. I'm on the 5e wiki, but I'm on the actual SRD 5e.
Okay.
Wiki. Surprise. Flavor text. GM compares dex stealth checks to anyone hiding with a passive wisdom perception. Score of each creature on the opposing side. Any character or monster that doesn't notice the threat is surprised at the start of the encounter. If you're surprised, you can't move or take an action on your first turn of the combat. So, the opening round, yes, but after that, no. After that, the surprise would downgrade to advantage. You would just have advantage on them because you're hidden from them. You have advantage on them. It would downgrade to advantage.
So if there's a surprise condition and the entire thing of PCs is surprised, wouldn't that make it a surprise round?
That's what I just said. That's what I said. I said it's purely a semantical argument. Like I said earlier, it's semantical. Like it's not listed in the book as a surprise round. But yes, technically, if an entire group of people catch the other people off guard, it is a surprise round, but it's not really a surprise round. So I said that statement is semantics, but
okay. And so essentially,
overall,
you can only be surprised on the first round of combat.
Yes. After that, I believe surprise downgrades to advantage because it says right here if you're surprised, you can only you can't move or take an action on your first turn of the combat, and you can't take a reaction until that turn ends. A member of a group can be surprised even if the other members are. So I mean that tells me right there the first turn of the combat, that is the first the first round of combat, that opening round.
Okay.
Which would make sense as an assassinate row. I mean, for flavor text, like you hide, you surprise the guy, you're getting a bunch of extra damage. You're supposed to drop him in one hit. You're an assassin.
Right.
You get your one hit in, and then you disappear into the crowd, and then you're gone. And that's kind of how that's supposed to be played out, and that makes sense. It's just I always laugh because it's just how health works in 5e sometimes, or health works in D&D in general. It's like, yes, that is the flavor of my character, but that never works out the way it's supposed to.
Right. Yeah.
Like I've never you're supposed to be like really badass. Like, oh, I'm just gonna drop in this crowd, stab this guy with the dagger for him, like hidden in surprise, and then keep walking, and he's dead.
Higher level rogues maybe because then you're getting all of your sneak attack
then
dice.
You're fighting higher level enemies though, so it's like
fair.
So it's like
fair.
That rarely ever works out. Like you can surprise murder townies.
You could just go around killing murder hobos.
Yes, you could do that.
Other adventurers.
Yes.
Just
Like
low level ones. Look for the ones who are hovering
the
around the bounty board.
PvP. You could be the asshole in WoW PvP that just hangs out in the noob area.
Yes.
Hangs out in the noob area and just kills noobs.
Just go to town and look at all the people who are checking out the bounty board because they're the noobs and just gank them all. Follow them into that the basement where they have to kill the were-rats or whatever. The giant rats. Oh, God, I hate people. Anyway. All right, number 2. Initiative. All right, so this one I'm going to want your guys' opinion on because I've always done it a certain way too. So they give a little scenario here. 2 players and a monster all roll the same number on initiative. Who goes first? In previous editions, ties were settled by the dex modifier or dex score. In 5e, that's not the case. When players get the same result on their initiative check, it's up to them to decide amongst themselves who goes first. The dex score, the dex modifier, and even the number on the d20 are all irrelevant. They just talk it out and decide. Of course, if they can't decide, then they can roll off or find another way to settle the dispute. Likewise, if a bunch of monsters get the same result, the DM can decide what order they go in. So, first, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I mean, I always knew that was the rule. I just don't have time for that shit because I have some people I've played to people who are like, no, I want to go first. No, I want to go first. No,
yeah,
I
who wants to sit there for an hour arguing initiative?
Exactly. So I always thing. When I GM and it becomes a roll-off, I will make it fair, though. It's not just one roll-off. It's always, if it's like 4 people tied for initiative, roll-off. Whoever wins that goes first, and the other 3 people roll off, and then that person goes. Then in that way, if you roll really shitty, you're not like, well, I'm last. All right. You have a chance to come back. You're just last out of that group. But yeah, I always just roll off until it's initiative is settled that way.
Right. I've always done the dex modifier thing.
And that's also the easier way. And then if your dex mods are matched, then you roll off. Yeah, that's always the easier way. Players to. I will always do dex mod unless the player. I will say this: if the players are like, you know what, like, because I think I've done it before. As Edquist, I've tied with Austin, or I've tied with someone like, oh, Austin, you go first.
Right.
And I have no problem with that. Like, if a player just outright says, nope, you go first, that's fine. Or you go ahead and take your turn first, that's fine. I won't even compare them. Like, all right, cool. But if it becomes a debate, just roll off. Like, I don't have time to sit here and determine. Just roll off.
Now, Edquist, what's your opinion on it?
Pretty much the same. Like, why do you want to sit there and have people argue about who goes first?
Right.
Make a definite rule on it. Be like, no, I want to go first. No, I want to go first. No, oh my God, guys, come on.
I mean, as the DM, you can also just step in and arbitrarily choose their order for them.
Right.
Yeah, but then you're like, why are you letting him go first? And then you have to deal with that.
That's when you say, because I am fucking God, and if you want to argue with me, then you can go last on the initiative order.
Well, no, that's just when you then say, you know what, like, I don't Like if somebody says that, like if somebody argues me with that, it's like, yeah, look, you're adults. I shouldn't have to step in, but you can't
I
make
would
a fucking decision.
Right.
So,
rather not have to argue with people as the DM either. So if
Right.
they had a rule about what it was, then I wouldn't have to argue with people.
yeah, I mean, which
Well,
really,
like our
the
general
first rule
rule
of D&D is there are no rules of D&D.
yeah.
That's the first rule of D&D. You sit down and play
Really?
D&D.
It doesn't say that in the book anywhere.
It says right in the beginning the DM is always right.
Hmm.
Now this is a common thing that I hear about too. Is what if during the initiative the DM and the players tie? So like if one of the monsters tied with you, Devin, right?
That situation, I always roll off. As a DM, me tying with him, I always roll off just because it takes the bias out of the situation. You know what I mean?
And see, like me as the DM, I generally would say, okay, you as the player, go ahead.
Yeah,
But
I would just tell the player to go first.
Just know that, obviously if you guys got the same initiative, your turns are happening at the same time. So even if you do enough damage to essentially kill this monster, he is still going to be able to take this last turn. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but no, like in that situation, I always just roll off. I just say just roll off. It's easier for especially with GM situation. Like if I'm a GM and I tie with a player, I just roll off because especially if you're like throwing a higher level, you could have monsters with like plus 15 dex.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, all right.
Yeah.
A player's not beating that, so
that's why as a DM I usually just say the player can go first.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
but then at the same time too, I've played with some players that I've said that a few times, and then they're like, "Well, why? What do you?
Why the fuck would your player argue about going first?"
Because they say you just want to see what I'm going to do, and then you're going to act based upon what I'm doing, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just being nice.
It's like, well, then you can delay your turn, idiot, if you don't want to go before the monsters.
Right. So then but then the argument was, well, I got to delay my turn, where I could have reacted to the monster. So I said, so it turned into a situation where I just said, you know what, just roll.
Oddly enough, if I remember this correctly, there is no in 5e. There is no delaying of turn. You can hold an action.
You can hold an action. You can ready an action, but you can't delay a turn.
Right.
You can't delay, I believe. You can ready an action. You can go. I'm going to set my spear against a charge. Like if there's like a cavalry guy on a horse, he's probably going to charge you. I'm going to set my spear for a charge, so he charges in. Then you take your reaction to make a. I think at that point, if he charges in, he's getting a threatening square. You take a reaction to spend your opportunity attack at like a plus 10 bonus or some shit, which you set against a charge. It's really crazy. And then
mounted combat. It gets gnarly.
Mounted combat is pretty gnarly.
So number 3 on this list is movement. This is something that I notice a lot of players, whether it's because they get mixed up on which version of D&D they're playing, they always get confused about their movement. They sometimes feel like they have to take all of their movement at once. Not the case. In 5e, they changed the rules around where you can legit break up your movement however you want. So you can move, attack again if you have the bonus action, for an attack, move, attack again if you have an extra attack. You can break up your movement as much as you want. It seems pretty straightforward to me.
My only question to that is, though, like if you have more than one attack at a time, can you attack, move, and attack out of that same action? Because technically you're taking an action in between an action. Because the extra combat attack says, when you take the attack action, you can make 2 melee attacks or 3 melee attacks or whatever. But then you're stopping your attack action to take a move action and then resuming your attack action. So effectively, you're giving yourself 2 attack actions.
I think it's all fluid, based off of what this guy says. With the rules the way they are, you can now move throughout your turn. So it's not necessarily taking a move action. You're using your movement. You can move, attack, move some more, attack some more, move again, attack using your bonus action, and then move even more. You're no longer forced to do all of your movement at the beginning or end of your turn. You could break it up into 5-foot increments and use them whenever you need to.
No, it says it right here. As your player's handbook, page 190.
Yep.
Move between attacks. If you take an action that includes more than one weapon attack, you can break up your movement even further by moving between those attacks. So there you go.
Yep. See, this is a good topic because we're clearing up rules for even ourselves. Rob, do you have any comments or questions about that particular rule? Seems pretty straightforward.
Rob, you're still muted.
Might be because of Matilda.
I know, but I know he also forgets. Say he's muted with Matilda.
True. Well, Rob,
I've been talking for 4 hours.
If you have movement questions, you can chime in, but I'm going to move on.
If you have movement questions, Rob, you can send your questions to
simplyprofessional@gmail.com.
Yep.
We'll be glad to have them. Number 4, bonus actions. So many players who come from 4E, they attribute bonus actions to minor actions. Although they are similar, they are not the same. Bullet point number 1, you cannot downgrade your action or move to take a second bonus action. You get 1 bonus action per round, that's it. Bullet point number 2, many bonus actions can only be taken when you do something specific with your action. For example, if you make a melee weapon attack with your action, you can then make one offhand attack as your bonus action. You cannot make the offhand attack if you do something else with your action, like dodge or drink a potion, or cast a spell. So I've heard on that one. So yeah, I mean that's all there is on bonus actions.
I mean that seems right. I mean that.
I know that with rogues,
never really confused me.
With rogues, cunning action allows them to do more things as a bonus action, like hide, disengage, dash. So.
Yeah, bonus actions to me were always pretty explained out.
Yeah,
well.
They're pretty straightforward.
If
I think the biggest misconception is the fact that is people think that you can downgrade an action to for a bonus action. You can't.
No.
So if you have a spell that is a bonus action, you can cast that 1 time per round using your bonus action.
Or if you're a sorcerer, you can twin it.
Yep. All right. So moving on.
Twin, so that's fine too.
We'll do opportunity attacks next.
Oh boy.
Get to the right page on the DMG on the player's handbook here. All right, opportunity attacks. The 5-foot step or shift is no longer a thing in 5e. Apparently.
No, it's not. You can disengage, but that's it.
If you back away from an enemy, moving out of their threatened area, that enemy can take a free swing at you. Once inside a monster's threatened area, usually all the squares adjacent to the enemy, you can move freely wherever you want as long as you remain within their reach. So if you've got the speed, you can literally run circles around your enemy and they will not get an opportunity attack. And it's important to remember that in 5e, each creature only gets 1 reaction. So if they take an opportunity attack against you, they won't get one against your ally when he runs away. Unless the enemy goes between you and your ally, then you've got a problem. See, that answers that whole question. See, they've specified it. In 5e, fewer things provoke opportunity attacks than in previous editions. For example, if you stand up from being prone, an adjacent enemy does not get an opportunity attack. If you make a ranged attack, an adjacent enemy does not get an opportunity attack. However, you do have a disadvantage on that attack roll because you're in too close of proximity.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a feat that a ranged person can take where they can essentially be
close quarters? I think so. There is a feat for it. I forgot what it's called.
Huh.
Or there's stuff. I can see. Is it
where they can essentially be like in melee range and doing their fucking ranged weapons?
Yep, there is. I just gotta remember what it's called.
They can Legolas the shit out of this.
Boom. Yeah, it's a fighting style. They added it in UA.
Okay.
Close quarter shooter, you are trained in making range attacks at close quarters. When making a range attack while you're within 5 feet of a hostile creature, you do not have disadvantage on the attack roll. Your range attack ignore half cover and 3/4 cover against targets within 30 feet of you. Finally, you have a +1 bonus to attack rolls on range attacks.
Now, is that a ranger?
It's a fighting style.
That's a fighter thing?
It is a ranger fighter style, so.
All right.
Well, here. Underdog distinct combat environment that fighters, paladins, and rangers can learn to use their advantage. The following new options for the fighting style feature are available to those 3 classes. So this is for fighters, paladins, and rangers. So either one can use that. That's where Donnie's tunnel fighter thing came from too.
Fuck that guy.
Yep, you excel at defending narrow spaces. Doorways as a bonus action. You can enter a defensive stance less to the start of your next turn. While you're defensive stance, you can make opportunity attacks without using your reaction. You can use your reaction to make a melee attack against a creature that moves more than 5 feet while within your reach. So Tunnel Fighter lets you break the rules of the game. That's the point of it.
So wait, so that particular one allows you to make multiple opportunity attacks?
That particular Tunnel Fighter allows you, as a bonus action, you go into a defensive stance that lasts until the start of your next turn. But while you're in that stance, so every round you can give up your bonus action to make unlimited opportunity attacks. However, you can, without using your reaction, you can use a reaction for something else, but you can make unlimited opportunity attacks without, you can make opportunity attacks without using your reaction. And you can use your reaction to make a melee attack against a creature that moves more than 5 feet while within your reach.
It's fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
I don't like it.
It's UA. A lot of the stuff in UA is not necessarily battle tested, which that is it's not a particular. It's not weak, but it's not.
Donnie
okay.
battle tested that one on us.
It's not necessarily weak. It's not OP. There are ways around it, but the problem was once you're in range with him, you're forced to just trade. But going back to that fight, your problem was that you were just radiant vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it was just bad. Like,
which
all radiant shit.
Which no other Lich is.
Yep.
I still do not understand why I got that.
Because we told you Austin was afraid that we were gonna just wreck the party, so he capped us, he kneecapped us a little bit, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, well.
You know what? You control Abraham in another game.
I mean, not only that, but we drowned. What was it? A snake in a safe?
The mouse or snake? A snake, one of the two.
Yeah, one of them. I think everything's a snake nowadays.
Yep.
I'm never living that down. All right, so that was the opportunity attack scenario.
I'd like to point out that he kneecapped you, and yet you still won.
I mean.
Okay, to be fair, if he didn't kneecap us, right, we ran, and if he didn't kneecap us, first, okay, me and Ollie both told Austin, like, we're not going to just come in and destroy the party. Like, we're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. First off, we were only about one level ahead of them.
Yeah.
It's like, we're basically the same level, so it's basically a 2-on-5 fight, or 2-on-4 fight. I said, we're not going to come in and destroy the party. In fact, we're just going to, we weren't even trying to fight. We were just trying to get what we wanted to get and get out, right? That was the plan.
Yeah.
And because we knew this was going to take time, and it did, and it wound up taking more time. So I'd just feel like, okay, all right, I'll just burn all my spells now and everything I have to do. And yes, and then there's skill check challenges, which how I feel about skill check challenges. They're terrible. Like,
I will say my bard is not bad at them because bards are awesome with skills.
Well, that's the thing. Let me break down the reason why I hate skill check challenges, and this is the reason why I hate skill check challenges.
Hold
depending on the situation.
Hold on 1 second. Insert Austin listen here type music.
Yeah.
Very important, Austin. Alert. Pay attention.
This is I'll put the Metal Gear sound right before this comment that like has it locked on Metal Gear sound.
Yeah, like when they notice that you're in a fucking box.
Yep. But yeah, so for a class like a fighter, for a class like a sorcerer, you don't get a lot of skills. Not really much at all. You usually are dumping not all your stats, but your stats aren't. You don't have the stats, and with how stats, there's no skill.
Your skills are generally always athletics because you're dumping most of your shit into strength.
Right, your athletic skills, or you're looking at, like, if you're a sorcerer, most of your shit's charisma based, and you can't inside a swamp. We've been over this. or wisdom or charisma based or whatever. Like, so it depending on what the skill check is. Like, for instance, perfect example. Where was a sorcerer? You threw a physical skill check at me. What can I do? And then you set the DC at like 25.
Yeah, that is something I've repeatedly talked to Austin about, and I think he started to like rein it in. Austin has a hard time because like for one skill check, he'll set the bar what he thinks is a difficult bar, and the group fucking annihilates his skill check challenge. We just happen to roll really well, and we annihilate it. So then he ups the bar to the point where fucking nobody can succeed. You literally have to roll a fucking 19 or a crit to win. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, I mean, you gotta have like that buffer. Like, if you're gonna do a skill check thing and you want it to be increasingly difficult,
average,
I would say anything
above 16.
How did I walk you
through skills? Remember I walked you through when you were determining save DCs and stuff for traps?
Yeah.
I said you find out the average check of your party. Like, whatever you want it to test. Think of what you wanted to test. You find out that you have access to your party sheets. Find out the average check of your party. So if you have 5 people in the party and this is primarily going to be testing physical stuff, so you're looking at strength, athletics, whatever.
Right.
You look at that, you average it out, you say, okay, the average check's a +7. So a 50% chance to succeed would be a DC 17. 50-50.
Right.
If you want it to be hard, you can make it, that means that if you set the DC at 10 plus that, it's 50%. If you want to give them a 25% chance, 15 plus that, that's now at a 22.
Yeah, see,
22 rolling with a 7. You're still gonna fail way more often than you're not.
Yeah, see, I was just gonna say on like a hard skill check challenge, I would say a 22 or a 23 DC would be viable. Because you're essentially asking the party to roll a 16.
Yeah, like a 15 plus or 16 plus, which is not an easy roll. It's not an easy roll. It may happen. You can do it, and but you also could go the other way to go south. But you also set the checks, and then it's like you'll come up. I came up with a way that let me genuinely bypass them, and it's just like, nope, you still got to roll. I'm like, why did I waste this?
Right.
Like, I just flew. I'm like, okay, there's swinging anvil things. I'm going to fly over the mechanisms and avoid it. Like, nope, they're everywhere. All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Austin, point is, it's 2019, bro. Almost 2019. Just stop the skill checks.
He's never going to do it, though. He loves skill check challenges.
And he needs to not. I love them. They're
Just once, I'm gonna find a way to insert a skill check challenge into Vamp.
Vamp is the only time I won't mind it because you can't set the DC at like what, a 10? Like, fuck you. If you like, oh well, you're in a room and you got to get through here.
I might not be able to raise the DC that high, but I can certainly say that you need X amount of successes to pass or fail.
There's ways I can get out of places. Like, I feel like Vamp, I have more options. And if the day you insert a skill check in the Vamp is the day I quit Vamp.
What if I insert? Hold on.
Vamp is my one safe haven. It's my safe haven of skill check challenge.
What if I insert a skill check challenge, but only for Austin's character?
Depending on how impossibly difficult you make it, if you make it impossibly difficult, and he's like, "Man, I can't pass these," and I just be like, "You don't say."
Yeah, exactly.
You don't say.
I'm gonna make him do a skill check challenge in Vamp that is gonna be so hard for him to pass.
You can make it like super difficult and be like, "Oh, you can't." First off, you can't make the same rolls twice. All right, one. So you can't do the same thing twice in a row, right? All right. Now. You also can't use the last thing the guy before you used, but in this case, it's just him, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so there's that. Now, in this particular one, it's like for clout. All right, it's social based. Go for it.
Oh God,
it's social based. Go for it. Let's see what you pull out your ass on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure something out. It's gonna be bad. He's gonna get tossed out of some place that you guys need to be in.
Tossed out of an Elysium or something?
Okay, so that was That was number 5. We kind of got off the rails there with opportunity attacks, but sure.
I get hot when you
Yeah.
just go check challenges.
It's true. I think it's hilarious. All right, number 6, concentration. This is the one that we put a pin in the earlier conversation. All right, so let me read this. Many spells require a spellcaster to maintain concentration. These spells remain active until one of 3 things happens. 1. The spellcaster casts a different spell that also requires concentration. You can only have one concentration spell active at a time. The new one trumps the old one.
Can I read the last 2 off the top of my head and see if I'm right?
Sure.
All right. The second one would be the player voluntarily ends or stops concentrating on the spell and or the timer runs out. 3, they take damage and they fail their concentration check. I forgot what the check is for concentration.
It's either 10 or half the damage, whichever's higher.
Yeah.
It's
I believe it's a constitution save.
Constitution save. Yep, Constitution save.
You got one of those 2 correct.
Okay.
So number 2 was the spellcaster is required to make a concentration saving throw and fails. More on that below. Or 3, if the spellcaster falls unconscious.
So you're saying they can't voluntarily end?
No, I think you can. It's just these things forcibly end concentration.
Okay.
I think it's kind of up in the
everything.
I think it's kind of a given that if you're concentrating on something, you can just opt not to. So it's like, no, you're getting like beaten by like 6 goblins. It's like, I can't fight back. I'm concentrating on this slow spell. Okay, so it says while a spellcaster has concentration spell in effect, they can cast other spells. They just can't cast another concentration spell, or the first one stops. So that ends that whole counterspell argument. So a cleric can cast Bless in round 1 and then cast Sacred Flame every round after that. If a spellcaster has a concentration spell in effect and they take damage, they must make a concentration saving throw, which is a Constitution save. The DC is either 10 or half the damage taken, like Edquist said. So unless a single attack deals 22 damage or more, the DC is 10. If the spellcaster fails to save, the spell stops. Remember that a save is required every time the spellcaster takes damage. I am not going to lie, I'm very bad about keeping track of that.
I usually do it for like Attica stuff. I usually kept it and rolled it.
Okay.
If it wasn't even to flood the thing, I just rolled it privately and just ended it. Yeah, that's why I love spells like not Chaos Bolt, fucking
Please say Magic Missile.
Magic Missile's 1. Well,
because it
yes.
says right here. So a spellcaster hit by a level 1 Magic Missile would have to make 3 separate saves.
Magic Missile, or but Magic Missile is a first level spell, which is why I hate Magic Missile to a degree. Not really.
Chaos
Let me
Bolt?
explain. No, not Chaos Bolt. Fucking Warlock.
Blast.
There you go. Because each one of those is a separate ray.
Right.
So if you're like, what is it? I think 17th level. It's 5 rays. So it would be, if you hit with all 5, it would be 5 saves.
Right. So yeah, I mean that kind of puts the kibosh on that whole like, oh, if you're maintaining concentration on a spell, can you still use counterspell? Yes, you can.
Well, no, that wasn't exactly what I was saying. But I mean, it in the realm of D&D, it still falls in the same realm. But what I was saying would be like, because if I'm not mistaken, let me look up counterspell.
It's a reaction.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh. Does not require concentration.
No. It's so counterspell is somatic components. I was saying like, but technically, how counterspell works is before the spell gets out, it's countered, right?
Right.
So you're in the middle of doing the somatic components for one spell, but how are you going to still weave that spell and do the somatic components for counterspell if your other spell has somatic components as well?
You have 2 hands.
I know. It's a little. That's my only point, but yeah, it's fine. Which is why, first off,
I
you really
would
wanna
say, here's a question. All right, if you're going to, okay, so I just busted out the whole, well, you have two hands argument, right? So if you're like casting the first spell with the somatic components using your left hand, you can use your right hand to do other spells, etc., etc. Interesting question. Roleplay wise, if a character loses an arm, would you still allow them to do that?
It depends on okay, a small pin in this, but not really. If previously established, the D&D game is erring on the side of realism, like to the point where like I've been in games where like they err on the side of realism, like you have a dominant hand as a player. You know,
Right.
you have a dominant hand. So if you lost your dominant hand as a spellcaster, it was like I think it was we had to get rules for it because it happened to my character. It was
Yeah,
bullshit.
in second
There were
edition, it
penalties.
happened to my character too. Like you,
Yeah,
you,
there
you,
were
you could have
penalties.
your arm break, and then you end up getting attack penalties and stuff using your offhand because it's not your dominant hand.
Right. But even just for like somatic components and spells, because this was in 3.5, which there weren't penalties for those, but we made them up. We were just like, you know what, let's do that, and I think it was like a -5
Right.
or -3 because you actually like rolls.
So I mean, my original question still stands. Your guys' personal opinion.
On what?
On if a character loses an arm.
Oh, sorry, I didn't finish my point. I'm an idiot. If that wasn't previously established, I wouldn't fight it. If it was a previously established as a realistic
Now,
style game,
you as a player, which would you prefer?
you know how I feel about realism. I like gritty, so I'm cool with that. But
All right.
I would I love gritty shit.
I would say, like, I didn't even think of that, but I would probably say I wouldn't allow it because if they had a sword and a shield and they lost an arm, I would be like, well, you got to give up one or the other. You don't have an arm to hold it.
If they lost a hand, they could technically still use a buckler because it just
Right.
straps to their arm.
Right.
If they lost their whole arm,
Now we're getting into
actually no,
technicality.
you can animated shield. It just floats there.
If you have one.
I mean, that's it becomes an investment point at that point. You invest in it.
Because not giving away too much. Not giving away too much. Sorry, I was interrupted. You guys may or may not in Dungeons and Distractions be running into something that may or may not take a tongue from one of you potentially. So
Jeez.
if one of you were to lose a tongue and you were a spellcaster, would you say that you could no longer cast
No.
verbal spells?
Yes, no, you can't. Like okay. Actually, I'm not gonna say that because you can still grunt and make noises.
Yeah, but you're not. To me, when you're casting a spell with a verbal component, it is you're inciting
Yeah, you have to like
something
pronounce
magical.
words and stuff.
Yeah. You need more than just grunts and groans.
See, this is the thing though. You run into what differentiates magic, and I guess it boils down to the world. What differentiates magic between like a human and
Right. So you could have like a
an
goblin
elf.
spellcaster that uses
Right.
grunts and groans or whatever, but that's goblin. If
Yeah,
your
it
character
translates
does,
to
if your
something,
if your
which-
character does not speak goblin,
right? But I'm saying, like me as a spellcaster, I can still teach a goblin my magic and vice versa, regardless of what I speak it. So I guess it boils down to how do you determine is the somatic components of a spell, like can one sorcerer just go chippy chap chap chap, and that's his somatic components for what that's what he says when he casts his spells,
well,
and that's his
somatic is
components.
your hand gestures.
Sorry, you know what I mean, verbal components. Can he just say chippy chap chap chap, and that's his verbal components of the spells, and that that's what that boils down
Well,
to.
see, from what I remember reading, is every spellcaster's spells are unique to them, and you can teach other people's spells, but that's what requires so much time, is because you have to put it from essentially your shorthand
Mhm.
into a version that the other spellcaster can understand.
Then I would say at that point, then if every spellcaster is their own, then I would just say it would require some downtime and some time invested. But you can technically rework your own magic to operate off grunts. That's what I would say, because yeah, it would require an investment. It would require downtime and like you actually putting effort into doing it. But
you would have to literally relearn every one of your spells.
Well, all your verbal spells, you would have to rework your magic, rework the spell to work off grunts and things like that. But I think it's doable. Also, too, if you get into a counter spell war, Webby, it pays to have some sorcery points if you're a sorcerer, because you can distance spell counter spell, and they can't counter your counter spell because you're further away than they are.
Fair.
Also, some spells would still be useless at that point, like Whisper and Message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
True.
I mean, true statement. I mean, it would gimp you for sure, but I mean, yeah. I mean, it's kind of just like what would happen if character-wise, your character was a mute and you were a sorcerer, or you were. I mean, yes, if I did that, I would go through every spell and make sure my spells don't have verbal components.
Yeah, I would. I mean, if a character, I see. This comes back to the whole conversation you and Austin had about DMing styles and stuff. But if I had a character who came to me wanting to be like a wizard and was like, "Well, I want to be a mute," it's like, then you can't take any verbal spell component.
Yeah, no. That's what I just said. I said me doing that, I would. I said ultimately
me as a DM, I would require that. That's the thing.
You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm saying. That kind of rule, it's up to the DM because there's no hard line rule for it.
I mean, I would hope that everyone we know would be smart enough that on an audio podcast, you wouldn't choose a character that is a
You
mute.
would think so. Insert pay attention here, Austin. God damn it. I want to play a mute. Oh, that's real nice, Austin, on a podcast. That's cool. But I'll grunt and stuff. Yeah, that's still real cool. God damn it. All right.
When are we starting that up again? Are we starting it again?
No, well, I mean, we talked about it, but then we kind of did the not ghoul game thing.
Yeah.
Well, no, I thought your friend wanted to play with us or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I got to build him a character. It's essentially whenever I sit down and talk to him now. Which I have not done. I haven't had time to fucking do anything, really.
Now which friend?
Ross.
Oh, okay, Ross. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be down to play Ross. It may be a little bit for me, but I'd be down to play Ross.
Yep. All right. So moving on from concentration, something that ties kind of into that whole conversation is number 7, casting 2 spells. Yes, you can cast 2 spells in the same round. The only restriction is that one of them must be a cantrip. So we often see clerics cast Healing Word, level 1 spell, bonus action, and Sacred Flame, a cantrip action, in the same round. This is absolutely 100% allowed. So
now, is that only tied to a cantrip? Like, if I have a spell that's a bonus action and I have a regular spell that is a level 1 spell that is an action, can I cast that?
is your cantrip the bonus action?
No, like if I bonus action. No, I'm saying if you had 2 spells, but one was a bonus action and one was an action.
No.
What's stopping me from doing that?
The one restriction is that one of them must be a cantrip. Otherwise, you cannot cast 2 spells in the same round.
Unless you're a wizard. Sorcerer.
Twinning spells does not count.
Right, but I'm saying you technically do cast them twice, just not. Yeah.
You're spending sorcery points to twin the same spell that you cast.
Right.
You're not casting. You're not literally casting 2 different spells.
I got you. I got it. I was working around it, but yeah.
But I could see where this could get kind of confusing, where some people would be like, well, this is a bonus action spell and this is an action spell, so can I do them both? Obviously not. One of them has to be a cantrip. So that does put limitations to things. Number 8 we kind of talked about earlier, and that's delaying turns or readying an action. In 4E, if you weren't ready or if you didn't like your spot in the initiative, you could delay and jump back into the initiative whenever you wanted. That is not a thing in 5E. Now you can ready an action if you don't know what to do or if you need to wait for an ally or a monster to do something first. You can only ready one thing, which is an action or a move, and you must declare a specific trigger that determines when you can do that thing. So readying an action counts as a reaction, so you cannot take an opportunity attack when readying an action. An important note for spellcasters: if you ready a spell and don't cast it, perhaps the trigger wasn't met by the end of the round or whatever, you still lose that spell slot. This is why spellcasters generally only ready cantrips. Point of clarification. If you're readying... What is this thing? Alright. If you're readying an action and the trigger hasn't happened yet, you can choose to take an opportunity attack if something provokes one, but doing so counts as your reaction and the readied action is forfeit. So, there you go. So if your turn comes up and you're waiting for, say, Devin, Rob, and you're waiting for your Tez to do something first before you do something, you can say, well, I'm gonna ready an action. If something gets within melee distance, or if an enemy gets within melee distance, I'm gonna attack. So on and so forth. Anything to add, Devin?
No.
Okay.
It seems like a waste. I don't know why anyone would even do that.
Well, like I mentioned before, like if you know the enemy's going to charge you, or you want to get ahead of the game, like you don't want to, like if you're like, think of it this way: if you're defending a location, let's say you are a spearman and you're defending a location, you don't want to advance on the advancing enemy. You would hold there, and where your bases are, but your turn comes up first. You say, "I'm going to ready my action." When they get within range, I'm attacking.
Right.
And then they close on you, and then they're walking into an attack, as opposed to you going to them, and then yeah. So
and possibly you being on the wrong side of the fucking war. You know what I mean? If you go to them, then you could be surrounded.
You'd be that one fucking guy that's just running towards the crowd, and you see shit coming your way, and nobody's behind you. You turn around and start charging towards your guys, like kill them all.
But if you just say, oh, well, he's over there, so I guess I'm not doing anything this turn. But then all of a sudden you realize on his turn that he's now right up on you somehow. You could have readied an action and used an attack. I just said so.
Yeah. I mean, use it or lose it. I mean, you're better off just readying it and not using it than,
than needing it and not having it.
Exactly. Especially for that works great for cantrips that are like range, but they're out of your range, like barely out of your range. Mm-hmm. Expect because you don't want to close as a wizard. You're like, I'm just going to stay back here. I'm just going to ready, or you can ready like magic missile. I'm going to ready magic missile. If he gets within range, I'm going to hit him with magic missile.
I will say personally, as a DM who's in charge of a fucking turn order for you fucking clowns, I am very happy with the whole ready action thing and not delaying turns anymore. Because then I don't have to fucking around with the turn order. Because then the second you had another monster, or the second you add something else to the initiative, and you have to reorder it, then everything gets all wonky again. It's fucked up.
No. I still say readying an action is a waste.
What you're saying is I should summon all the monsters, Webby, to the field.
No.
That's probably because I have so much other things I could do.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, if an enemy is approaching, but he's way out of your range currently, what are you going to be able to do as trip?
I could lay down some spells in between or something. Or,
what if they're out of your spell range?
I have concentration spells that exist constantly.
Oh, well, there you go. Then Trip is one of those characters where you would never need to ready an action because you're always going to have something that you can do on your turn.
Well, no, here's my caveat to that. If I was charging you and I saw you put down a field of vines or like a wall event, I will actively run around that and not get involved in it. So it's basically effectively a wasted spell on you.
If the area is large enough for that, then I would probably just approach the enemy because it's going to take them forever to reach us.
Then you're the only. Then we go back to that same thing where you're the only person running out there after the enemy, and no one's following you except for probably Brenna.
I have lots of escapes. I can fly. I can teleport. It's fine.
All right, Trip's gonna die. I'm gonna kill Trip next episode.
I refuse to ready in action. I will just skip my turn. How about that?
All right.
I mean, that's just silly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guarantee there's always something I could find to do on my turn without readying an action.
But
like slapping Talon in the face.
But then you're doing something you really don't need to do. You're not.
Oh, it needs to be done.
Well, what if somebody wants to? What if you go before everyone else in the initial order, right? But somebody wants to use a combo thing with you. They're like, "Oh, hey, Trip, lay this down, or do whatever. Do whatever after I do this." You know what I mean? Huh?
I'd be like, you should have rolled higher, bitch.
That's not the team spirit. I'm so murdering Trip. I'm just gonna. He's gonna die.
I'll help you.
All right. In that one extremely weird situation, which I don't see how that could ever come about, then I would go
teamwork. You don't see how teamwork could ever happen.
Well, what is it that they would want me to do that I can't move?
In distractions, I don't see very much teamwork happening ever.
Like I can't move, so whatever they want me to do, I have to stand in that one place. So I don't see how.
Spell. What if they want you to cast a spell at a very specific moment after they do fucking something?
For what reason?
Fuck if I know. I'm just throwing that out there. But you're saying that you would never fucking.
Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question right here. All right, as Trip, our mission, our only mission, guard an outpost. Enemies are approaching the outpost. Right? We have anti-siege weaponry in the outpost. Are you telling me you're just gonna get out of the outpost and be like, all right, I'm charging and fuck it, I'm going, I'm running. I'm not gonna ready an action. I'm not gonna ready this ballista for when they get in range. Nope, I'm gonna go charge them.
I don't like readying a ballista. Sounds like it takes your whole turn anyway. You're talking about my own readying stuff.
No, I'm saying, but on your turn comes up. They're closer to be within initiative order, but you can't hit them with anything. You're like, all right, well, I want to hit, one of their siege towers that's coming towards with his ballista. That's out of my range, but if they keep advancing at their current rate, it won't be. Next turn, when it moves, it will be in my range. So I'm going to ready this ballista to shoot down the siege tower.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having Trip use the ballista, then we have a problem.
Okay.
But I mean, I could do other things. I could cast demonic rage on somebody instead, or
your next fight is going to be in a fucking tower with siege weaponry, being assaulted on all sides, and Trip's gonna die.
That was my favorite.
I will just refuse to take my turn on principle. I'll be
God damn it,
Edquist.
Nope, it's fine. It's fine. If he wants to do that, I got something for him. Tez got something for him. We ain't got time for these people. Tez is gonna ask you a question, and all you have to do is say yes.
I'll look around and say, this looks like I might need to transform into my demon form. Oh, look, I did it. Oh, I didn't ready an action. I can't now. I used an action. Oh, well.
Your next fight, you're going to get penalized every time you just don't ready an action. Even if you're doing all of the right actions every single round and you're kicking ass.
I will say this.
For every time you don't ready an action, you're getting penalized.
I will say this, Webby. I will give Rob the very shallow benefit of a doubt on this one and say generally our combat in distractions is not hyper tactical, but if you're in a hyper tactical game where combat is important, like in tactics and combat is important, and you're much better off not.
I feel like that was a jab at my combat scenarios.
You're catering to the group you play in. I don't think our group would handle hyper tactical combat well.
Oh.
I also don't.
Me as a player enjoys hyper tactical combat.
Well, good, because you're going to enjoy something in the near future.
Me as Tez, I don't know how that's going to go, but
I don't have anything that's like if anything, we're close enough for my spells to hit it. My damaging spells, I could close with it and attack. So I don't really know what I would ready if I was readying something.
We'll figure it out.
Oh God.
All right.
You know what? Next game we start. I'm just gonna ready in action and get it over with.
You're gonna have like the enemy right next to you. You're gonna be like, I'm gonna ready my action. If this guy does something hostile towards me, I'm gonna hit him.
No, I'll just do it. I'll be like, I'm readying in action. As soon as Talon walks past me, I'm gonna trip him and push him over.
Nope, I'm just gonna start readying actions. I have a Webby. I have a freestanding ready to action outside of combat. That is legitimately just anytime Webby's NPCs try to do anything, I actively try to just talk them into suicide.
Talk them down. Yeah.
And talk them into suicide.
Yep.
Like, oh, this little girl buys a teddy bear. I just look over. It's a poor ass teddy bear. That teddy bear ain't shit.
You bought that teddy bear? You got the discounted price because the little girl who owned it before fucking died horrifically.
And it was all your fault.
All right, number 9, moving on, short rest. In 5e, short rests take 1 hour, not 5 minutes, as it did in 4e. Most players realize the change, but I'm still getting the occasional player who thinks they can regain their powers and expend hit dice to heal when they rest for 5 minutes. Resting takes a lot longer in-game and therefore isn't as common as it used to be. If monsters are chasing you now, you do not have time for a short rest. So, short rest, 1 hour. Long rest, 8 hours.
Yep. I knew that.
The only exception to the long rest rule is if you happen to play a race that does not require 8 hours of sleep. Some specifically state that all they have to do is meditate for 4 hours, etc., etc. Then you get your long rest after 4 hours. So, good on you for choosing that race. Number 10, the last one is death saving throws. This was a new mechanic introduced in 4e that carried over into 5e. There are a few important changes that people still get wrong. Number 1, death saves are now made at the beginning of your turn, not the end. So if you get that magical 20, you're awake and you can take your turn as normal, which is something that I did not realize until recently. But if you are making death saves, if you've been knocked unconscious or whatever, and you roll a nat 20, you're at 1 hit point. You can actually get up, taking half your movement, and continue your turn. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah.
Another thing with death is that a lot of people don't realize that you have to get negative your entire life in one turn in order to die outright.
Right.
Which is dumb.
It's hard to do at higher levels for sure, unless a fucking...
It's hard. I mean, I don't like how 4 and 5e, they just made death not like... It's impossible to kill a character.
Well, I mean, if you strike them while they're down, you...
In 4e, didn't you just have to get...
death throws.
Didn't you just have to get half their negative hit points?
Yeah. Now it's negative full for...
Now it's the full hit points into the negative in one hit, essentially, to kill them outright.
Yeah.
Now, I will say one thing. I don't know if this is necessarily a rule, but it has been house ruled. And I know me and Austin, I'll have to double check with Austin to make sure he runs his games this way. If you've been knocked out, and you are now in the process of needing to make death saving throws, and you are hit with an attack, you automatically lose 2 death saves by getting hit by that attack.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was just 1, but...
No. That's why, as a DM, most of the time, as long as the creature that's fighting you is somewhat intelligent, I will just have them kind of move on to the next target, unless they are extremely intelligent, in which case, like the one devil was essentially going straight for Atticus the whole time.
Yep.
He pinpointed Atticus as, that is your guys' healer. I'm going to kill him. And his whole thing was, if he knocked Atticus unconscious, he was going to continue to beat on Atticus until he was dead.
He didn't even knock me unconscious, though.
No.
The reason why he got me with was fucking that spell.
Yeah. So, but yeah, only highly intelligent creatures will continue to target somebody. Otherwise, generally speaking, once you're unconscious, you're no longer a threat. The monsters will move on to the next viable threat. Yeah, I will say. I mean, that's generally the case. It's not always the case. Sometimes you get an NPC that, regardless of their intelligence, they're just very vindictive. They've singled somebody out for one particular reason or another. So then you're really relying on your party to essentially step between you and them to take some hits for you, and keep you alive and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, so those are the 10, some of the 10 more common mistaken rules, I guess. I think it was a good talk. Fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, it clarified some stuff for me that I hadn't really thought about. Now, do you guys have any type of rules-esque questions that either you've never brought up because it's never really came into effect, or that maybe it's been on your mind that you've just haven't had a chance to try to look up, or you want to know essentially how the DM would rule it in a particular game?
No.
No, Devin knows everything.
No, it's not that. I usually come across rules with you just through bullshit conversation. Like, what happens if somebody loses their tongue or their arm? That's how. Yeah, I'm not sitting here thinking of, well, in this situation, what's going to happen? In this situation, what's going to happen? Like, if you gave me a power that wasn't in the game, I would sit there and try to break it down. But like D&D as a game in general, usually not a lot of ways to like fuck with the rules already.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're pretty much everything's confined with an action. So it's like you only can get so much mileage out of an action per the action itself.
And see, I will say that is specifically why I prefer D&D and Vamp over fucking Fate. Because Fate, It seems like you can just keep going and going and going and going until the DM's like, all right, you've had enough.
Yeah, I mean, like, I will say this: at the end of the day, Fate doesn't matter in Fate though, because at the end of the day, you're still rolling the same amount of dice. Like, you can say I jump off this like 80-story tower and do like 50 front flips, crash through a plane, and land on the ground in an epic explosion behind me, or you can be like, I take the elevator. It's the same fucking roll.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the same fucking roll.
It's like, how flashy do you want to take that elevator?
That's it. Like, that's it. Like,
that first guy, roll flashy. Roll. That elevator guy, roll careful. Let's see if that elevator breaks on you.
Yeah, that's it. Like, at the end of the day, I'm still rolling this 4D Fate plus a modifier. Like, it's the same. Right. It's the same thing. So, like, that's what gets on my nerves in Fate. Like, it's a lot of stuff you can do, but I don't hate low power. I'm not a huge fan of low powered Fate games. Like, you can do a lot of stuff because you can, whatever you want to do in your head, you can just do it or say you do it. But more often than not, you succeed either epically or you don't. You either succeed epically awesome or you fail dramatically. Like, it's rarely mediocre, and it's just like Fate is great and all, but sometimes Fate becomes a chore.
Well, see, the thing is, I come from a heavy D&D background, and so, like, when I'm playing Fate, like, as Lincoln, right?
You like some structure.
So, I'm a speedster. So, in combat, as a speedster, yeah, I'd love to, like, run down a line of, like, 10 guys and just take their weapons. It's like, oh, hey, you guys don't have weapons anymore, because, you see Flash do that shit all the time. Or, like, take out, like, 4 or 5 guys by punching them in a big line or something like that. But as a like you said, I'm a structured D&D player. I find myself only attacking one person at a time.
Right.
And then your guys' turns come on and you're like, well, I'm just going to like throw this acorn in the air and it's going to turn into a tree and then it's going to just crush 19 guys. It's like, how the fuck did you wipe out that side of the map and I'm dealing with one dude? Like, I'm apparently playing this game wrong. Like,
well, no, this is my problem with Fate. Like, I have one of my biggest problems with Fate, and I'm going to say this, not Fate Core. I love Fate Core. Fate Core is great. Fate Accelerated, I hate it because it just becomes... Fate Accelerated is a let's make a deal simulator between you and the fucking DM on how you can describe you want to do something to make the role you want to make.
Right.
That's what that is. It is literally a lawyer's debate on, okay, now you say this is careful. You say I need to be careful doing this, but I say I'm just going to hit everything so fast, super speedy, that it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm going to do it so fast, I'm pushing all the buttons at the same time. The right one's going to get pushed. It doesn't matter, right? Or, like, whatever.
Oh, yeah, like cutting I'm just going to cut them all.
Yeah, you got to cut all the wires at the exact same time. Or, nope, you got to be careful and do it. Like, it becomes a rules debate because you suck at careful, but you're great at flashy, or you're great at and you're put in these situations where it's like you have to perform on another stat. So you're arguing against that stat to get your best stat or one of your best stats in the equation. And then you wind up playing these really balanced characters. Like, and when I say balanced, I mean boringly balanced. Like, you have people in your group that are, 5s, 6s, and 7s to roll to like one or two stat, like one stat. And then you're like a 3 across the board. So you're mediocre at everything you do.
Right.
But you become a jack of all trades, either become a jack of all trades or hyper specialize.
Right.
And if you hyper specialize, then when you're forced to roll other stuff, it's usually pretty bad. You argue the whole time about certain rules, things like that. Where that's why I love Fate Core, because Fate Core is not a attribute based system like Fate Accelerated is. It's skill based. So there's the skill pyramid that, like, one skill, I think you put one skill at a +3, 2 skills at a +2, 3 skills at a +1, and 4 skills. No, I think however it goes. Then 4 skills at, then 4 skills at +1, and then that's how it goes. I think it's 4-3-2, 4-3-2. Yeah, however, I haven't played it in a minute, but yeah, and it's skill based. So what happens with the skill based is, like, if you want to shoot someone, there is a shoot skill. You roll shoot. You are your best skill is shoot. You're an expert marksman. Your best skill is shoot. You have a +5 to shoot. So you roll shoot. So no matter what you're doing, you can describe it however you want. Like, if you're a superhero, I fire my eye beams at this individual. I fire my heat lasers at this individual, hit him or whatever. However you want to describe it. That's still, at the end of the day, it's still a shoot roll, and you can describe it really cool. But there's structure within the rules because it's based off of skill. So at the end of the day, everything's tied to a skill, and you can't argue like I'm gonna like. You can swap like athletics and acrobatics if you know what I mean. If it makes sense for the situation, like, you need to, run across this roof and jump across this building before the building explodes, or this helicopter crashes on you. Well, I can do that with athletics and be really fast, or I can do it with acrobatics and be really do like parkour running. You can describe it that way, but at the end of the day, it's a skill.
Right.
Where if it accelerated is you have the attributes.
And you only get fucking like 4 or 5 of them. Yeah,
and it's like, so it boils down to, okay, and it sucks more than like Fate Freeport. Fate Freeport is a D&D Fate with attributes. So take the skills away. You roll Fate and you have the attributes, but that still makes more sense because based on what you're trying to do, like if you want to pick up a javelin and chuck it at someone, probably a strength roll. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a strength roll. If you want to take like your spear and like stab a guy 50 times, like real quick, that's a flashy, or not flashy in that case, that's a dexterity roll.
Dex roll.
So I mean, you just roll your 40F and add your dex mod to it, and you're done. But when you go down the flashy and all the other stuff and what those are supposed to represent, it gets really difficult to not try to play towards your best stat.
Right.
And to me, I find it changes my narratives more often than not, even when like my inner self is like, just ignore it and just roll the shitty roll. But at the same time, it's like, well, I could do it this way and have a much better roll. So I usually want to go going that way. So it just kind of sucks because I find myself arguing with myself and with the DM to like get what I want out of Fate.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, like I've had this talk with John, like where like Lincoln, like he does not have like all these cool aspects to his, but he's fast. That's just he's a speedster. He's legitimately the Flash. So like, yeah, I dumped a lot of points into quick with him, and then all of a sudden now I'm mixed in with, this past season or whatever. I was with Edquist, your character's name, Alex.
Yeah.
And Devin, you were
CJ. I was CJ.
And both of you motherfuckers had quick too, and you were better at it than me. And it was just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Then
I was not better at quick than you.
Well, I mean, maybe not statistically, but you definitely roll. I rolled like shit all last season.
I would say this old CJ was closer to quick. On you, like I think
like,
he was like a 5 or 6 or 6.
You guys are more utility. Like you guys could do more things. You know what I mean? Using quick, other than just I run fast. Like I told John, I was like, dude, I don't know, because like that's all Lincoln's got is he can run. So like that's when I started telling him, we're on a boat, huh? We're on a boat going down the Nile. All right, it's gonna be a fucking 3-day journey to get there. I'm gonna get us there in an hour. I'm just gonna run on the water and push the goddamn boat. Okay, I'm gonna be the speed. I just invented speedboats.
Yeah, but my quick skill is not good. Like I'm not quick, but the I could use flashy instead because I stopped time and then moved through frozen time.
Right, and see, like with CJ, what I did with CJ and Scythe, I literally took, and they had opposing stats. So CJ wound up being kind of average last season, because what I did was I took his stats, added them, and just divided them by 2. I took the average of all his stats, and it worked out where a lot of his stats were inverted from what they should have been. So he worked out to be overly average, and actually was like he was a downgrade to both characters in some way, which was kind of made sense for the season. So it was just like Scythe was much more like when I played Scythe was more of a grounded Lilu when I originally played him. He had in his head that he was a wizard, and it was funny. I told John like my flaw was he believed he was a wizard. So
put on my robe and wizard hat.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, he believed he was a wizard, even though he was an Annual, so he could really much do whatever he wanted. But he believed he was a wizard, so if he tried something and failed, he wouldn't attempt it again because he thought he just didn't have the power to do it. So, like, I'm gonna try to levitate this rock, and block the arrows that are blocking out the sky or what the fuck ever. Right? He tries it, rock goes off the ground like 2 feet, and crashes. He's just like, oh well, I can't do that. Peace. Right. Never gonna try that again. So that was the original flaw he had, and that's just how that worked out. But like, John likes Super Rules Light. John loves Fate. I like Fate Core. Fate Accelerated.
I will say, out of all of the games that I've played, all of the systems that I've played, you know what? No, Fate's not my most hated one.
Supernatural?
No, I actually, that's not my most hated one either. I fucking really
Star Wars.
I did not like that Star Wars one.
I'll say this, from what you described to me, I've never played it. From what you described to me about that Star Wars one, that's my most hated system. I haven't played.
Yeah.
Fate.
Fate's my second. I don't like Fate.
I don't dislike Supernatural. I dislike having to bounce between an online sheet and a physical sheet on that particular game.
Well, that's just because we can't find one. Yeah.
That's right, because it's a super obscure system, which it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So I'm going to look at Monster of the Week. We might be changing to that. If not, we'll just do Vamp, so that we don't have to learn 2 new. Monster
of the Week, Vamp more.
And see, that's what I would have done. Like, only because I'm partial. I don't like learning a million fucking different systems.
Yeah.
But you can use a Vamp sheet, and essentially anything that you want to do, you can accomplish using a Vamp sheet. The only thing is you're not going to be using things like disciplines. That's essentially you're dumping all your points into skills now and attributes. So you want to drive somewhere, Dex drive.
You get New World of Darkness. You get New World of Darkness, which is what I ran the Mortals game off of for that zombie one shot I did.
Yeah.
That was New Worlds of Darkness, where literally it is just all you do is I'm trying to think off the top of my head right now. All you literally do is pretty much same screen across the board. You build mortal stats. I think it's 4-3-2. Attributes are 4-3-2. Skills are like I think it's 9-6-3 or some shit like that. You don't
instead of
mortals
13,
aren't
9,
great.
5.
Yeah, mortals aren't great.
Right.
And then what you wind up having
You're
is
not meant to be though.
right. What you wind up having, and your diff is just 7. Your standard diff is 7. And that's pretty much what it was across the board. And the gunplay rules were a little bit. The only thing that got weird were the gunplay rules in that, which weren't hard. They were just you had to know how to. They required a little bit more finesse in the system. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't learn though. I knew the system like vaguely-ish and or more in depth and vague off the top of my head. I didn't learn the entire system for the game because I knew if it was going to become something, I would have sat down and read the whole book through and through again. But I hadn't read in a while. I couldn't remember all the gun rules, but it's not a big deal.
Now,
the two systems I would say would work really well would be Vamp, like Webby said, or me. I'm always a fan of basic role playing, which is just the system that Call of Cthulhu uses. It's a flat D100 system. It's actually great for investigation games, because that's the reason why I don't use it in more stuff. It's super realistic in like terms of damage and stuff like that, but that's you can adjust that however you so choose to. But the only reason why I don't use it for more stuff is because there are so many investigative skills that it's like if I use this for any game that involves combat, people are immediately gonna be like, "Well, I'm just gonna ignore fucking use heavy machinery." Like it's like. That kind of shit. Like, there's like 5 or like 8 skills that people are never like accounting. Nobody's ever gonna fucking pick up the accounting skill for a one shot for fucking like if it's there's going to be combat. It's not combat focused, but it's going to be combat. I'm not going to waste my points on accounting.
Right.
But I love that system too. So if whatever one you want to go with, I have books for all of the stuff. I can send you books. So
I will say quickly talking about the Vamp system. I know I had mentioned this prior, and I mean, perhaps I'm just good enough at calling out what roles to make that you guys are always accepting of that, but I do enjoy it when, like, if you want to justify a role rolling something else to achieve the same result. I'm all for you justifying that. I don't consider that you arguing with me in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if I'm telling you, like, in a social situation, roll manipulation, blah, 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 and you're like, well, I'd rather do charisma in this.
Right. Well, I mean, that makes sense because, like, you as a DM, you're not picturing in my head what I'm doing. Like, right. You may think I'm trying to manipulate and be intimidation, and I'm like, no, I'm not intimidating. I'm coming at him from a place of actual, genuine, like, sincerity.
Right.
So I'm going to use my charisma to win him over, which for Roy doesn't matter either way. But that's neither here nor there.
Right.
But yeah.
So I will say, I mean, if at any point I have you roll something, although if I say, okay, roll perception firearms because you're attempting to shoot someone, you're like, I want to roll strength and firearms. I'm gonna be like, no, you're dumb. It's perception. That's pretty flat. Unless you're throwing your gun at them.
No. I will come up with one right now that is possibly not.
What?
Literally just blind firing over a thing and just spray and pray. Could it be Dex firearms but at a higher div? Because I'm not really trying to hit anything. I'm literally just peppering the enemy behind me. I'm not even looking. I'm literally just throwing the guns over my shoulder and just pulling the trigger.
It's just straight firearms with no perception.
I mean, it's just how fast I can pull the trigger. That's the only reason why Dex is coming into play. I mean, see something like that, I would say sure with a higher diff.
I guess if it would depend on the weapon, like if it's a fully automatic weapon or if it's like a pistol or whatever. Yeah, I might let you get away with Dex firearms if you're just blind firing.
At a higher diff.
Yeah.
I'd imagine a higher diff. Like, you're shooting blind fire,
sure.
You're not gonna hit anything.
For sure. I mean, there are spray and pray rules. Essentially, that's where fully automatic weapons come into play.
Webby.
You know.
Remember, see, the question. Remember, I said I don't have a lot of questions about things because I don't. questions come to me as I think of bullshit tactics, and then
Yeah,
I
I mean,
have to
your
ask
questions
the DM.
come when when we talk about stuff like
I
this.
just thought of one.
Okay.
Could I technically, like, could I blind, like, if I was in a situation in a room and I was blind, like, I couldn't see, right? For whatever reason, I couldn't see.
Sure.
But before the lights went out, I had a mind link, like, I was reading the dude's mind. Could I shoot him at him, like, basically using our mental link as knowing his surface thoughts where he is as a location? Could I roll, like, fucking auspex and firearms?
No, at that point, I would make it a multiple roll. I would allow you to roll aspects to lower your difficulty of your blind fire.
Okay. But
And it would
that tactic could work.
in that particular scenario. It would still be perception firearms, but at an increased difficulty because you've become blinded. But if you used your auspex to try to read the surface thoughts to figure out where he is, as long as he's also not blinded, like if you guys are both in an obtenebration bubble, using auspex to read his surface thoughts, all you're gonna get is what the fuck, where the hell am I? He's not gonna know where the fuck he is either.
Could I read somebody's, if I'm reading someone's mind and they cast obtenebration on me, can I use that mind link to walk out of the obtenebration because I know where they are if they're not actively in it?
Probably not, because
I know we're disoriented here.
well, you would have to see your target to use your auspex.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If I already had the link established, that's what I was saying. Because I think if you lose eye contact, I think you can maintain the link as long as they're in a certain range after you make the link.
I would have to read it, but maybe. I mean, it seems viable. It's essentially it's like what in the Game of Thrones book, spoiler alert, it's like in the Game of Thrones books when Arya is looking through the cat's eyes when she's blind.
Yep.
It's essentially you doing that.
See, this is where all my rules questions come from. Like, we talk about something, I get ideas, and then I just start spouting off rules questions.
Regardless,
and then I drive Webby slowly inside.
We're going to have to do a whole nother recording on these, on just us bullshitting about games like this. Because we've already run about an hour and a half, so that's going to be our episode.
Awesome.
That and it's 10:30. I'm fucking exhausted. I still need to find something to eat because I haven't eaten today at all.
Yeah, you need to do that.
Then I get to go do it all again tomorrow. Yay. I love life. Anyway, Edquist, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at Confessor_X and on Twitch at twitch.tv/ConfessorX.
And Devin, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You guys can find me at DMP_Pookie on Twitter and at Who Killed Me on Twitch. Streaming with Webby
At some
at a
point.
location near you soon, maybe.
Yeah, we were trying to aim cheeky. We were trying to aim for Saturday, but Devin was sick this past weekend, and then I fell super sick on Sunday night, and I've been sick most of the week, which has made this week even more terrible.
Satan is trying to actively stop us from streaming. That's what I've learned.
But we are going to try to aim for a weekend day, or possibly a weekday if I get out and am not exhausted, and Devin's the same.
Yes.
But we will be streaming again soon. We just
See, it's
gotta
really
get
funny.
this.
Me and Webby have flop schedules for the most part now. Like, I'm home most of the day now.
It's fucking stupid. I want to go back to being fucking jobless.
Like, I'm at home and bored as fuck most of the day. Like, if my roommate's not at work, like, I just go out there and we would just, like, watch Netflix all day and just sit there like, all right, well, I guess.
Well, here's
like,
the thing.
And then, like, my phone rings. I'm like, is that my job? Like, are they calling me into work? Like, nope, that's just my aunt. All right.
Here's the thing. Like, when I didn't have a job, I had plenty of time to, like, think and just mentally prepare about running games for you guys and stuff like that. Even at my last job, that's all I did all day long was I was able to just sit there and think about, oh, well, this is their scenario. This is what I'm going to, roughly have them do or whatever. This new job, I get home and it's like, oh, hey, we record in an hour. It's like, what? We have a recording? I haven't even thought about this yet. I am so flipped on my head. It's fucked. I don't have time to even think about how much life sucks. I hate everything. Someone, please.
Yeah.
The silence is killing me.
Sorry, I just got back. I had to go.
God
I was taking a
damn.
pill.
Sorry, I was muted because I'm back to playing Dead by Daylight.
And I was taking a pill.
See, all through that, Edquist
No,
was playing a game, not
I
paying
heard-
I
attention,
wasn't.
and Devin
I
walked
heard,
away.
I heard everything you said.
Cheeky, I need a hug. Okay.
I heard everything you said. You get off work. You used to be all day. You used to sit there and playing games. Everything have time. Now you get off work. You come home at like 8:30. It's like, oh hey, you get the reminder on your Facebook like, oh wait, we have recording in an hour. Fuck. All right.
Well,
And then you just pull shit out of your ass, and it's usually good. So there you
bullshit.
go. No, it is good.
That's where, like, I don't know. I had a breakdown. I don't remember when it was. It was earlier this week. I had a breakdown in distractions chat on you guys.
You did.
Anyway, you guys can follow me if
I love
you
like
really
I hadn't
want
talked to
to
you
on
for
the
a few
internet.
days when you did that too. We had that little mini breakdown. I hadn't talked to you for a few days because we were both just between sick and busy as shit. And then you had the breakdown. I just messaged you like, "Are you okay? You're being overly sentimental. Are you okay?"
It wasn't even sentimental. Like, I'm starting to doubt myself. Like,
Don't doubt yourself.
ugh,
Don't doubt yourself.
I suck.
You
Anyway,
don't suck. You're fine.
like, hold on. I have a theoretical question for you, Devin, because Edquist tried to put the kibosh on this earlier before the SU started. I was telling him I'm going to solve all my problems by burning my house down with me in it. He's like, that wouldn't solve your problems. It's like, well, I wouldn't be around anymore, so I wouldn't have the problems. Would that solve my problems?
No.
How not?
Let me explain. So, here, walk with me for a second. This is my brain walking. Right?
Okay, I am walking, holding hands with your brain.
How do you feel? Like, how does your day genuinely go if you know, like, somebody is miserable, right?
Depends on who they are.
Like, if you knew me and Edquist were miserable, or like,
I feel bad.
you feel bad, right? And then by proxy, you have a pretty shitty day yourself, right?
Probably.
So,
Generally
you could-
speaking, if I find out other people are miserable, I am elated. It makes me so happy.
So, what'll happen is you'll burn your house down with you inside, and then you won't get any rest in peace because me, Clay, and Rob would just be, and Goose would just be super depressed all the time, and then you'll have to live in death with the fact that it's your fault. It would just add to your problems.
Fucking people just can't plant a tree and name it after me or some shit and be okay with that. Isn't that what people do?
If I planted a tree and named it after you, first off, I wouldn't plant a tree and name it. I would find a bear cub and name it after you.
Nice.
I'd buy a bear cub and like release it into the wild and be like,
Just release it into Detroit.
I just release it
fend
into
for
New Hampshire.
yourself.
No, dude, I would do like this is like if this was like a comedy movie, like I would do like a really sweet gesture and be like, I'm gonna buy this bear cub, release it in the wild, and then I like go to like the wild, like release this bear cub, and it's like, have fun, Webby. Like right when I say it, like a fucking like logger like mows a tree down, just crushes the bear.
Just crushes it. No, that's why you got to release it in Detroit. Make it like an adolescent bear, not necessarily a bear cub, and then just tie guitars to its fists.
No, I just want to like I just want to drug a bear up like and just weekend at Bernie's and like just put him in like a fucking like wheelchair and just like put him in like a Hawaiian shirt and like a wheelchair with sunglasses on and just roll him around and people look like that bear like no, he just has a skin condition.
Well,
it's my uncle. It's my uncle. He has a skin condition.
You can follow me if you guys want to on Twitter at Jax Forest Walker.
You should follow him.
All one word.
Him.
Also,
Porn stars, you also should follow him.
Please do. I follow most of you on Instagram.
We should try to get a porn star in here. You should interview a porn star. We should do it.
I'm looking at you, Sasha Grey. Anyway, she doesn't do porn anymore, but I support her lifestyle choices.
Me too.
You fucking, I threw me all off now. Twitter, I'm on Twitch. I'm on Twitch doing stuff sometimes with Devin when we can. I don't know what I am. I don't know what I am. What's my Twitch? DM Webby.
DM Webby. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
Webby.
been a while.
And then
It's
my
been a while
Instagram
since
is
we
something.
checked
It doesn't matter though.
It's Patrick_Webster.52.
No.
Or Patrick.Webster52, I think.
There you go. That's my Instagram. Give us follows. As always, you guys can email us at simplyunprofessional@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook. We just had a fucking surge of Facebook fucking likes.
Yeah, we did.
It was gnarly. Did you see that, Devin?
I did.
Over like last week, I got like 100. We got like 170 some odd likes. We're past the distractions Facebook now.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are.
Take that, Austin. Insert pay attention here, Austin.
And all you had to do is go to Pennsylvania.
Go to insane, you mean?
Ugh.
I like how so many people enjoyed our insanity.
Wait, what'd you say, Webby?
Pennsylvania.
About Austin?
Insert pay attention here, Austin. I don't know what that was.
I didn't. I turned my volume down and it didn't go up 100. All right. We're going to copyright strike for this, bro. I'm kidding. We're not. For that one.
That's a little chime music for you.
Yeah, little solid snake chime that's super low for some reason. There we go. That's better.
Oh, there it is. I heard that one.
Yeah, it's super low. Why are you so low?
Oh my god, he's in that box of bananas. So yeah, give us a follow on Facebook at facebook.com/simplyunprofessional.
Yes. Also, too, eventually one day we're gonna have a soundboard, and I'm gonna be able to drop those sounds in immediately, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
I am working on getting a soundboard. I don't know where the fuck I'm gonna put it. My buddy Ross was gonna help me hook me up with one. Anyway, challenge. I have not checked this week, but it is an ongoing challenge to get us a listen and a download in Russia. So for all you European listeners and downloaders, if you know anybody towards Russia, just try to edge them further along, get us closer to Russia. So like people in England, if you know someone in France, have them download. And then tell them, hey, if you know somebody in Germany, have them download, etc., to get us to Russia. All you Kenyan listeners, I love you. I don't know you, but I love the support. It's astonishing. I don't know why you listen to this podcast.
Because we're awesome people.
So yeah, I'm gonna end it there before I start rambling more and more. And
The Fate of Heroes and now Supernatural has 2 German listeners that have listened to every episode. I was looking at the other day. The map.
Fuck.
Yeah.
So help me, if you get to Russia before me, I'm gonna be pissed.
Don't be pissed. Look at it this way: if you get to Russia for you, we have an in now. We have a Russian in.
Side note: if Fate of Heroes gets to Russia before me, I quit. Not
Double
this.
side note,
I'm not going to quit Simply Unprofessional. I'm quitting Fate of Heroes. Yeah, you heard that, John, didn't you? Insert pay attention here, John.
I would minimize the sound. John just get the womp 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 womp
womp. All right.
It's like the fucking Price is Right fail song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Price is Right, Bob Barker.
I love Price is Right.
Actually, isn't it
Is Drew Carey now? I thought he was going to be
now?
bad, but he's been doing good, man.
Yeah.
He's been doing good for a few years. I like it.
All right, I'm going to play the outro music now so we can end this.
Cool.
So, I love you, listeners. And as always, fuck Booster Gold.
Fuck Booster Gold. Now we're not supposed to talk over the outro music, right?
No, shut up, Edquist. God damn it.
It's tradition now.
Shh. I hate everything you're doing right now. See, that's not me talking. That's me playing along with the music.